Unless you're having your wedding in a church, you'll require the services of a registrar. I met Zach Thraves from Kent County Council, who was able to tell me a little more about the legal requirements of a ceremony. Well, thanks for meeting with me today, Zach. Now, in your capacity as a ceremonies officer, what would you say the first thing a couple should do when wanting to get married?
Well, the first thing a couple need to do, most important thing, is to decide on a date and a venue for their marriage. There are many varieties of venues these days, from all across the country, ranging from castles, hotels, other historical buildings. Couples can have small ceremonies or large ceremonies. There's a lot of choice out there these days. The best thing to do is to phone the venue, book it with them first of all, and then phone the local registrar office and check to see if a registrar is available.
What are the legal requirements to a wedding?
Well, legally, the bride and groom need to give a notice of marriage. If a couple are getting married within the Church of England, then they need to have their banns read and they need to contact their local minister or vicar for that. But for any other type of wedding, a couple needs to give a notice of marriage, and they need to do that at their local registrar office. So it might not necessarily be the registrar office dealing with their wedding ceremony itself.
Right.
Now, legally, this has got to be done by both parties, and it's got to be done from within a year of the wedding, or at the very latest 16 days before the date of the wedding. The couple will be asked a series of questions about themselves and about their other half. They will also be asked to state the place where they want the wedding to take place, which is why they need to decide on a venue to start with.
Of course.
Because once they've stated that place, they are then only licensed to be married in that particular building.
Right. Now, my understanding is that one of the legal requirements for the venue itself, if not taking place in a registry office, is that there must be an overhead covering. Is that right?
That is, yes. A lot of ceremonies in Kent, which is where I'm from, do offer outside ceremonies, but it's got to take place under a permanent structure, is the sort of term for it. But it is true that they have to say their vows under a roof.
Now, in terms of the actual procedure on the day, what should a bride and groom expect from their ceremony?
Well, when they turn up, usually the groom arrives first to greet all of his guests, but some couples like to arrive together and enter the room together. But whatever they decide to do, whenever they turn up, the registrar will need to take them aside, either together or separately, and ask them exactly the same questions that they were asked at their notice of marriage. Just checking off, basically, the details on their marriage certificate, making sure that all the details are still correct. Because we record the details as they are on that particular day, not what they were 6 months ago when the couples gave their notice. Now, they won't need to take any proof of identification or anything else with them, just the certificates which most registrars should already have with them, with their details. Once all that is done and everything's filled out on the marriage certificate, they'll be asked to check the details, make sure that there are no spelling mistakes and everything's correct before everything's inked into the marriage register. Also, the celebrant will take them through the ceremony, just confirm when things are happening, when the poems are coming in, when the vows are taking place, all that sort of thing, just to guide them through. So basically, the couples don't really need to remember anything. They don't have to remember any of their lines or anything like that. Everything's done for them.
Oh, that's excellent. In terms of the ceremony content, are there any legal requirements there?
Not particularly. Well, there is one. They've got to say some vows to each other.
Right.
But everything else, they get to choose whatever they want to do, basically. If a couple are getting married at a venue, then for the most part, in most districts, they get all sorts of choices about the style and content of their ceremony. They can choose, for instance, all of the wording that the celebrant or the person who conducts their ceremony will be saying. They get to choose from a variety of vows, a variety of promises they can make to each other when they're exchanging rings, if they're doing that. Also, you could choose to have any readings, any poems, any messages read out during the ceremony, any music. You could have musical interludes or a singer coming in, or somebody playing a musical instrument. That's fine, that's often happened before. The only requirement is, on top of all of this, that we can't have anything religious played during a civil ceremony.
Right, right. So a couple may well choose to select some of these different elements to add to their ceremony. What will that do to the length of time? Is there any requirement for how long the ceremony needs to be?
Well, not particularly. If a couple are getting married in a registrar office, then they only get the time that they've booked, which can range from half an hour to 45 minutes. Within that time, they've got to have said their vows and signed the register and disappeared, sort of thing. If a couple are getting married at a venue and the venue hasn't got anything else happening afterwards, the registrars in attendance are not having to go on to another wedding later in the day, then the length of ceremony can be anything.
Yeah.
Usually, the typical ceremony lasts anything from 10 minutes to half an hour, depending on what couples want to take it into the ceremony. Some couples just want to do something very basic because they're a little bit shy or whatever, say their vows, sign the register and go home, in which case 10 minutes is all you need. But some couples want to add some readings, want their family to be more involved in the ceremony itself. So it could be 30 minutes, it could be 45 minutes. Right. But there isn't, unless we're having to go on somewhere else, there really isn't any time limit.
And are there any limitations on the hours in which you can get married or the days on which you can get married?
The legal requirements state that a wedding must take place between the hours of 8 in the morning and 6 in the evening. You've got to have said your vows by 6 o'clock in the evening. Right. Most registrar offices, I think, I can only really speak for Kent, but most registrar offices perform ceremonies between 10 in the morning and then the last one usually starts about 5 o'clock in the evening so that it can finish by 6 o'clock in the evening.
And would that mean, therefore, if for any reason you were unable to make your ceremony on time, you would still have the option of being married that same day? Yeah,
that's right. If you're quite late for your wedding, half an hour late or 45 minutes late, and there's one following you, then the registrars are obliged to do the one who's ready. But the couple will be asked to wait until the next available slot where they'll be fitted in to perform their ceremony, and perform it as they've asked to do it, or just to do a very quick version if they need to get out in a hurry. With regard to days of the week, a wedding can take place any day of the week.
Right. So within the ceremony itself, are guests permitted to take video and still frame footage? They
can indeed. We have a policy in Kent, I can't speak for other districts, but where couples can have their ceremony filmed on a video, or they can have a designated photographer taking photographs throughout the whole thing. Certainly, with all their guests bringing cameras, there is plenty of opportunity for everyone to take photographs once they've signed the register and they're sort of sitting there posing with their first shots as a husband and wife. And most guests are invited forward to take as many happy snaps as they can.
Another traditional aspect of weddings and ceremonies is the throwing of confetti. Is this allowed within a registry office?
It is, for the most part, yes. We do actually offer confetti for sale here, but we do ask that confetti is only thrown outside. It can sort of upset the cleaner if there's confetti all over the place when she comes in the evening. And I would say that goes for most venues around the country and for most churches, that confetti or rice is only thrown outside the premises themselves.
Now, flowers as well. Would the venue provide flowers, or would I have to provide them myself?
Most venues do supply some sort of flower arrangement. Depending on what that is, you could. Some venues have permanent arrangements of sort of plastic flowers that obviously been designed very well. But couples are always invited to, if they want to, contact a florist and bring in something of their own to match their bouquet or whatever, then we don't mind that at all.
Well, thank you very much for meeting with me today. It's been very informative.
It's been a pleasure.
And very useful. Thank you.
Thank you.
When arranging your wedding, start by obtaining a notice of marriage. Choose your venue right at the start of your planning. Bear in mind that the only legal requirement of a ceremony is that the couple exchange vows. And as long as you are married between 8 AM and 6 PM, you can be married on any day of the week.